This is my Ensoniq Sd-1 32 synthesizer. It's the 32-voice version of the Sd-1. Originally a 21-voice synthesizer, was upgraded later to have 32-voice polyphony. And of course the relative of the popular VFX synthesizers, although I believe the Sd-1 has earned a reputation of being a much more reliable board than the VFX, even though they are based on pretty much the same architecture. This keyboard has been very reliable for me. I bought it new in April of 1992. I don't remember exactly what the price was, about $2,000. And now here we are over 15 years later, and as you can see it still boots and works and sounds great. And the thing that's most impressive to me, I think, is the fact that the internal battery is still the original battery. Of course, these Ensoniq synthesizers used a battery backup for the sequencer memory, and this battery still works. It still keeps memory, and it hasn't even started leaking yet, so I find that to be pretty amazing. Very expressive synthesizer, especially for its time. It had what I liked here, 2 patch select buttons, which allowed you to modify the sound as you were playing live. By pushing any combination of those buttons, you could have up to 4 different muting and unmuting patterns in the patch, which could, in some cases, very dramatically alter the sound of the patch you were playing and help with you, along with the modulation and pitch bend wheels, to be more expressive. It also had something that was very unique even among Ensoniq boards later on, which was the polyphonic aftertouch, where if you were holding down one note on the keyboard and did the pushed harder, it would do the standard thing. But if you had a 3-note chord held down and you pushed just one of the notes harder, only that note would be modulated. And even Ensoniq dropped that later on in their MR61 board. This has monophonic aftertouch. And it probably was because, even though it's a logical kind of way to do it, I don't think many people took advantage of it. It really wasn't a feature that ended up being used very much. It has a 24-track sequencer, 12 tracks available in a sequence, and then when you build a song out of the sequence by linking sequences together, you get an additional 12 tracks on top of those other 12, which is really overkill. With a 32-voice polyphonic synth, you would easily run out of notes before you ran out of tracks in your sequence. So taking all 24 tracks was extremely rare, and of course it was before general MIDI, which is why the 12 instead of 16. 16, of course, now is the standard for tracks. But the sequencer was very easy to use, well laid out, easily accessible with a standard record, stop, continue, play button there, which seemed to make sense to me. One reason why I bought this keyboard over the Korg 01W that I was looking at the time was the sequencer on this one was a lot easier for me to use. I also thought this one sounded a lot better than the Korg. The Ensoniq synthesizers always, to me, had a much more warm, friendly sound. The other brands seemed to be a little flat, tinny, metallic sounding in those days. Of course, today the Korg Triton is my keyboard of choice here, but I still use this Ensoniq for some sounds, and my next CD will include some sounds on this board. One thing that is an inconvenience to this day, it wasn't so much at the time, but the Ensoniq Sd-1 and all the Ensoniq keyboards at that time used a proprietary disc format which wasn't compatible with anything else. So you couldn't just take a disc out and stick it in a computer and transfer MIDI files that way. But it did have some nice sounds. The distortion guitar is actually not too bad. It's 1992 keyboard guitar, but had a pretty good. It wasn't just a sample of a distorted guitar; it actually included distortion in the effects processing. So it was a little more expressive than the typical sampled guitar would have been. Let's go through some of the sounds in the Ensoniq Sd-1. Sawtooth synth. Zirconium. Here's the tying sounds are good on the Sd-1. I'll put the mic down and we'll use both hands here. Just a few of the sounds on there. Let's jump ahead on a sequence I did a lot of years, probably 10 years ago, probably for this thing, and just hear a little bit of some of this synthesizer in new age mode for me.